There's a new and dramatic shift in one of the latest southern states with liberal access to abortion. Abortion rights supporters protested last night's vote by North Carolina lawmakers to override the governor's veto and establish a 12-week limit on abortions. North Carolina now joins other Republican-controlled states in reducing abortion access. Caitlin Huey-Burns is in Raleigh, the state capital, to talk a little bit more about this. Good morning, Caitlin.
Hey, good morning, Anne Marie. Well, North Carolina had been one of the few states in the South with access to abortion. Now that'll change. It joins 19 other states in either limiting, restricting, or banning the procedure altogether. And Republicans pushed this measure through in just 42 hours.
Bill becomes law.
At North Carolina's state capitol in Raleigh Tuesday night, Republicans overruled the Democratic governor and pushed through new abortion restrictions. Under the new law, which goes into effect July 1st, most abortions will be banned after 12 weeks of pregnancy, a reduction from 20 weeks under the previous law.
The veto stamp has been applied.
Just 3 days earlier, North Carolina's Democratic Governor Roy Cooper rejected the bill.
It will make abortion unavailable to many women.
But his power is limited. Last month, a Democratic state representative from the liberal-leaning Charlotte area switched parties just 5 months after elections.
I will not be controlled by anyone.
The change gave Republicans a supermajority and the power to override vetoes from Governor Cooper.
Is there anything that you can do unilaterally on the issue of abortion?
We will never stop fighting to protect women's health.
The White House protested late Tuesday night, saying women have been left with no choice but to travel hundreds of miles for the care they need.
We just helped a patient from Alabama.
We went to a clinic in Raleigh last October that was already seeing a surge in out-of-state patients.
They drove a 10-and-a-half-hour trip to make sure they were at the clinic at 9 o'clock that morning.
10.5 hours.
Each way.
Now, there are only going to be 2 states in the South that offer access to abortion that's relatively unrestricted. That's Virginia and South Carolina. But Anne Marie, in South Carolina, the legislature is working to pass a 6-week abortion ban.
A lot of those surrounding states had trigger laws on the books. So as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned, they kind of immediately started to restrict abortion. And North Carolina was seen as, you know, a really strong option that something like this wouldn't happen in. And things have changed. So then what options are available to the governor, to state Democrats, or is this a done deal on abortion in this state?
Well, the governor said that he would do everything in his power to act unilaterally on this. But as we've seen at the federal level, you know, there's very little that an executive can do once the legislative body makes this decision and makes this law. And so what's important to note about North Carolina is that, you know, advocates of this bill, Republicans here in the state, have argued that it isn't as restrictive as some of the other states. It's a 12-week ban. They have exceptions for rape and incest up to 20 weeks of pregnancy. They also have exceptions up to 24 weeks of pregnancy for fetal anomalies, fatal fetal anomalies. And they also say that they have extended paid leave to federal workers. But at the end of the day, this really came down to the fact that you had a Democrat switch parties to Republican in the state legislature and gave the party the power to override the veto from the governor. And as we started reporting last October, you know, providers here that we were talking to were very worried that that is exactly what could happen. So the big question now is kind of the uncertainty and kind of, you know, the uncertainty of what the access is, how these providers will be able to kind of continue on. So a lot of questions remain, and that's where some of these sticking points or clarifications may need to be made.
Well, Caitlin, you remember during the midterm elections, you and I talked an awful lot about the role that abortion and abortion rights would play in the election, right? But it's kind of proving to be a little bit of a thorny issue for GOP candidates. And recently, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley kind of weighed in on that, sort of explained some of the challenges on Facebook CBS The Nation. I want to play some of what she had to say about the potential for a national abortion ban.
For a national standard, I think we have to tell the American people the truth. In order to do a national standard, you'd have to have a majority of the House, 60 Senate votes, and a president. We haven't had 60 pro-life senators in 100 years.
You know, and one of the things that she doesn't bring up is, as you know, poll after poll after poll in this country indicates that the vast majority of the people actually don't want more restrictive laws. Where do the various GOP candidates and potential candidates stand on a federal ban? And can you talk a little bit about how, you know, this is a kind of a challenging issue for them?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Anne-Marie. This has become a very thorny issue for Republicans. Republicans who, you know, for the last 50 years really have been campaigning to overturn Roe v. Wade, arguing that this should be left up to the states. Now that has happened. The states have acted, but candidates running for president have been asked and pressed about what they would support at the federal level. And they've been asked that because there have been anti-abortion groups supporting Republican candidates who have been pushing them to make their position clear on what federal measures they would want to take. The Susan B. Anthony list is one of them. They've been advocating for a 15-week federal limit. And that's really put some of these candidates in a difficult political position because on one hand, they want to retain the base of support in the Republican Party, especially in places like Iowa, where the evangelical base is so critical. On the other hand, they know that over the past several years, they've lost suburban voters, and they've seen not only in the midterms, but in recent other elections that this is an issue that really animates Democratic voters, but also independent voters and especially women. So when you look at the candidates, you saw Nikki Haley trying to kind of have it both ways there. Ron DeSantis just signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. Donald Trump, of course, was responsible for appointing the Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade. A lot of Republicans had wanted him to kind of take credit for that. And he's been kind of in a tricky situation here, too. He criticized Ron DeSantis for signing that into law. But now he's getting some pushback from DeSantis as well. So this is an issue. So certainly watch as the primary heats up.
Yeah, and certainly in that town hall that he did, he was kind of elusive when it came to sort of answering the question about where he stands on abortion rights. Caitlin, thank you very much.